In earlier episodes, we frequently mentioned that image 508 is the last image taken on April 1. However, it is possible that the girls attempted to take one more image or video that day. When the memory card from the camera was examined, it was discovered that file number 509 was completely missing and could not be recovered. This may have been either a picture or a video. Over the years, a huge amount of theories have been proposed as to what happened with file 509, and several very good studies have been carried out, hoping to find a definite answer. Although some of these studies sound very convincing, it should be emphasized that none of them can be proven, as we simply do not have sufficient data. So, instead of proposing yet another theory, it might be more useful to get back to the basics and take a close look at the situation. Lisanne seems to have been quite careful with the camera. Instead of carrying it in her hand, she kept the camera safely stowed away in its own bag inside the backpack, and only took it out during deliberate photo stops, which happened every 15 to 20 minutes. This means that image or video 509 almost certainly happened during a photo stop, and the two most likely places for this are the first and the second stream. Lisanne usually took 2 pictures during each photo stop, and there does not seem to be any reason why she would make a 3rd picture at the first stream, making it slightly more likely 509 was taken at the second stream. The other important aspect is that in image 508, Lisanne is not only quite far behind Kris, but she is also looking down on her. Although the slope at the first stream is not particularly steep or high, it remains quite possible to fracture 3 metatarsal bones here during an unlucky sliding fall. And if she accidentally pressed the camera shutter during this fall, the camera may have malfunctioned, causing image 509 to fail. So, although there are many different theories, a fall during a picture stop at either the first or the second stream would explain not only the observed fractures, but also the camera malfunction, as well as the huge delay and slow progress of the girls on the way back to the Mirador. As noted in the previous episode, in the fading light of the late afternoon during their trip back toward the Mirador, the girls possibly tried to avoid the total darkness of the trenches by walking on top of them. This is possible at some places, but not everywhere. These alternative trails are used by locals during the rainy season when the trenches are too muddy to pass through, but they are not maintained and often hard to follow. Attempting to use such a trail in fading light without a guide holds a large risk of either suffering an accident or getting lost. Unable to find the trail back the next morning, the girls may have found their route toward the top of the mirador, blocked by terrain or dense vegetation. Without any gear, the girls would be badly hampered in dense vegetation like this, and if Lisanne was injured, their progress would no doubt be extremely slow. This would explain how they could get lost even in such a very small area. During the morning of April 2, we see a series of alarm calls, starting immediately after sunrise, which indicate the girls are in serious trouble, trying their phones from various positions in the hope of getting signal. But then around noon, a long silence starts, where we see no further activities until the morning of April 3, when there are 2 final alarm calls in quick succession. According to an American study on lost person behavior, only 26% of lost persons actually remain on the same spot once they discover themselves lost. Everyone else keeps moving, with the vast majority following some random trail or stream in the hope of getting back to civilization. In mountainous areas, the majority of those lost proceeds downhill. However, lost persons very seldom wander far, with 50% of them found within 2 kilometers of their initial position, and 75% found within 4 kilometers. If we take into account the harsh terrain as well as the possible injury of Lisanne, it seems highly unlikely Kris and Lisanne traveled more than 2 kilometers from the 508 location. It also seems likely that, after they lost the trail and found their route to the mirador blocked, they traveled downhill, driven also by an urgent need to find water. On April 14, almost 2 weeks after the girls disappeared, when Wild Explorer searched these slopes, he found nothing but soft soil and very dense vegetation on the lower slopes, close to the first stream. But when he searched the higher slopes, closer to the mirador, he found signs of other persons. At that time, he presumed other search teams had been there before him. However, Sinoprot never conducted any searches on these slopes within the first 2 weeks, and there are no records of anyone else having searched here within this time frame. Although there is no way to prove this, it is possible that Wild Explorer actually found signs of the girls searching for a route, which would prove our theory. Although the vegetation is very dense, there are small streams and mudslides which lead downhill to the eastern stream which runs along the center of this valley. Depending on their exact position, the girls would have to travel about 230 meters downhill to reach the stream in the center of the eastern valley. If they subsequently followed this stream, they would reach the first stream after about 700 meters. But given the rough terrain, it is likely this relatively short distance took them several days. On the 3rd of April, the girls must have reached water, as there is no hope the 2 small bottles they carried with them would have sustained them so long. So, by now they must be down at the bottom of the valley. The girls make their final call attempts in the morning of April 3, but although they no longer call, we now see a weird pattern where they start their phone twice a day, always around the same time. By simulating a day at the bottom of the valley, we get an impression on why they did this. This deep down below the dense canopy of the eastern valley, direct sunlight only reaches the forest ground during a few short hours, and the times when they check their phone exactly correspond with the times when daylight starts and ends. Most likely, these were the times the girls were on the move. They checked their phone right before they started, and they checked the phone once again when they settled down for the long night. But why do they never use the iPhone at night? Not even once during all these days. From the very first day, they always wait for sunrise before starting up the iPhone. Could it be that, when Lisanne fell on the first day, the screen light of the iPhone became damaged, making it impossible for the girls to see anything on its screen unless there is direct sunlight? After several mild and sunny days, the weather changes on April 5, the first heavy showers introducing the start of the rainy season. Search operations for the girls with planes and helicopters, which were supposed to start this day, have to be postponed due to the bad weather. It is impossible to tell whether this bad weather is also involved in changes we see to the daily rhythm of the girls. At first, they attempt in vain to start the Samsung's 3 phone, which ran out of battery on April 3, and then they start the iPhone, but they do not enter the PIN code for the SIM card, making it impossible to see any signal strength or to make any call. From this day onward, this code will never be entered again. It is possible that the SIM code was omitted in order to save time and battery power. But it is also possible that the phone was malfunctioning due to water damage. Or Kris became incapacitated and Lisanne did not know the code. Although the weather cleared again on April 6, there was no longer any doubt that the rainy season was on its way, and there was a lot more rain on April 8, and especially on April 11. Time was running out for the two girls, but north of the Mirador, the search had barely started. Plane and helicopter searches north of the Mirador started on April 6, and it is possible that one helicopter flight came within sight of the girls on April 6 or 7, while they may have been able to hear several of the other flights. Almost certainly these helicopter searches prompted the girls to lay out the SOS sequence and tear up an empty Pringles can to create a daylight signaling mirror. Sadly, none of the search flights managed to spot the emergency signs or the girls, and the paper letters were most probably washed away when fresh rain started in the afternoon of April 8. The night pictures started in the early morning of April 8 and lasted till shortly before sunrise. The fact that the pictures started shortly after moonset seems to indicate these were planned in advance and not triggered by something the girls saw or heard. The pictures were made in a predominantly southerly direction toward the distant mountain ridge. There is a small chance the girls could see the glow of the city lights of Boquete reflected against the clouds above the ridge. Although all pictures can be roughly put together into one mosaic, careful study shows that the pictures were made in series, with the camera remaining in exact the same position during one series and then moving slightly to the position for the next series. With the exact camera positions established from the mosaics, we can now plot these positions in the 3D model. We see the person taking the pictures, alternating between a sitting and lying position. However, we also see movement back and forth, which might indicate the girls took turns handling the camera. Our confidence in the relative positions of the girls gets strengthened as we start to analyze the various overexposed pictures. With the camera positions known, we can now calculate the position of the overexposed parts in the 3D model. When we do the same with image 580, we find that Kris must have been sitting in front of Lisanne, just as we suspected during earlier research. By adding the head of Lisanne as derived from image 585, we can see the position of both girls seated very close behind each other. This is probably the best confirmation we will ever get that both girls were still alive and conscious in the early morning of April 8. With this knowledge and all the final camera positions, we can now reconstruct the whole sequence.